back to Q&A with S&A. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Shane.
And today we're really lucky to be joined in our podcast studio by a special guest from our community, Amanda Mandie OAM, and Executive Director of Koala Kids. Amanda is known as Mandie, so we'll call you Mandie from now on. Mm-hmm. And I will let you share, Mandie, more about what Koala Kids is about and about why Koala Kids and how you came to be involved in it. Mm-hmm. Some of our team members were lucky enough to come along to Koala Kids and do some volunteering, which is awesome. We love to be able to do that with members of our community. And the team that came back from Koala Kids that morning, they've done, team volunteering days before, but they just couldn't stop talking about it. So thank you for allowing us the ability to come out and spend some time with you. Tell us about Koala Kids and why.
Oh, why? Well, I'll go back 20 years.
Yeah, go for it.
Because 20 years ago, our son, Nick Mandie, was bar mitzvah. We're a Jewish family, and when Jewish boys turn 13, you're probably familiar with the fact that their family and friends celebrate their coming of age. And Nick decided that he wanted to do something with monies that he'd been gifted for his bar mitzvah. And he'd been brought up in an environment in our home whereby I'd often volunteered and my husband and I have both been involved in philanthropy. And at school, the kids are often they're often educated, obviously, about their role in the wider community. So Nick was familiar with the fact that I'd been involved with different organisations. So I started looking around for something that would give Nick a bit of a buzz with his friends, because he didn't want to just donate money, have a photo taken and get a certificate and walk away. He wanted his money to be a seed to grow something. Long story short, we couldn't find that wow factor. So we realised that our daughter was in class, Nick's little sister was in class with a little boy who was completing his leukaemia treatment. They were in grade 1, and Ben's father, Tony McGinn, had founded Koala Foundation, Koala being an acronym for Kids Oncology and Leukemia Action. So it was a play with words, really.
Perfect.
And they'd actually launched the first $1 million lunch in August 2005. So I started talking to Tony, having been a guest at the lunch, and said, Nick's got this money, it's burning a hole in his pocket, what can we do? Is there anything we can do? Knowing that children's cancer, sadly, is a very sexy space and it attracts a lot of people, and there's a lot of organisations, and in fact at our last count there are about 26 not-for-profits of different sizes, local and state. Anyway, Tony said, well, look, we really don't do enough for the siblings. Let's see what's out there for the siblings and let's see what you can do. Well, fast forward 20 years and we are now we're a major small player. We are a small organisation. We attract revenue of around $500,000. Tax company thinks we're medium. And we provide small things that make moments of happiness for children and young people undergoing cancer treatment. The small things isn't part of our mission. We took that out because we prefer to focus on those moments of happiness. Our tagline is, we believe happy helps. 20 years later, we know happy helps. And we know it helps because we are constantly surveying our families, the healthcare workers and our volunteers, and each are equal in our equal partners in our family, which extends all the way around Victoria. So we support the Children's Cancer Centres at Monash Children's Hospital and at the Royal Children's Hospital. We go into most other units because if a child has a brain tumour, they're obviously going to have their surgery in the neurological. If they've got a bone tumour, they're going to be in the orthopaedic. And then they can come back to, and most often they come back to the Children's Cancer Centre for their treatment. So we infiltrated over the years, all these units, and then a series of 9 regional hospitals where children, if they live further than an hour and a half from their major treatment hospital, they can go locally. So we're right up at Albury, Wodonga, Ballarat, Bendigo, It goes on and on. I could sit here and list them all, but I don't need to. So a child can go. 25% of families, we call them families rather than the children because we do treat the whole family. Yeah. We support the whole family. 25% of families with children with cancer live outside the Melbourne metropolitan area. We concentrate on children aged from birth to 18 years. But we also support a fabulous unit at Peter Mac, which is 15 to 25. So they call that adolescents and young adults. So we really overlap that paediatric and AYA area. And we work, as I said, with the families, we work with the healthcare workers, and we support the families both in hospital and at home. At Peter Mac, the only kids, not only, the kids that have to go to Peter Mac paediatric for treatment are those that have to have radiation. And if they do, they can have to have it up to 39 times at 20 minutes a blast, Monday to Friday. So it gives you an idea of the impact we're talking. And it means that if they live outside of the Melbourne and metropolitan area or further than an hour and a half from the hospital, they have to be relocated and they're accommodated in an apartment. So the whole thing is layer upon layer upon layer of stress and anxiety for a family. Because there's 9 times out of 10 there's other family members, of course, too, who need to be looked after. And sadly, because of the way our community is, many of our families only have one parent. And many of them rely on grandparents and they rely on neighbours and they rely on extended families. And sometimes we get caught up in the 2-parent family where both parents don't live in the same house. And we've had to accommodate like lots of extra things. So I could keep going, but I think that gives you a cameo of who we are and why we do what we do. Moments of happiness for kids with cancers, that's a no-brainer.
Nat, can I just, so Mandy, with one of those, because I'm an accountant, I love the stats part of it, and you said 25% come from outside of Melbourne. Is that disproportionate? Is that?
I can't answer that.
No, you don't
I'm sorry,
know?
I don't know.
No, I'm just curious.
But I'll go back in one step with numbers. Around 300 children each year are diagnosed with cancer. Of that 300, about 250 are new diagnoses, and between 60 and around about 60 are relapses.
Right.
So they're kids that have been in remission. We even had one of our gorgeous little girls. She was ringing our end of treatment bell, which we have in both both cancer centres. And literally she was spinning in her little ballet steps, celebrating her end of treatment. Down in the lab, they discovered more cells.
Wow.
So she went straight into treatment and she spent the next, 8 months in intensive care. She became very, very sick. So even though we believe happy helps and that's what we focus on, doesn't mean that we aren't obviously full of empathy and sympathetic for the families, but they need us to focus on what we're good at and leave the other stuff so that we can be, and we are quoted as being life-saving. We think that's a little exaggeration, but that's the generosity of the expression of support that we provide,
amazing.
Which is pretty special.
So moments of happiness, what does that mean?
It can mean a lollipop for a child who doesn't want to get their finger pricked again. Okay, so it can be encouraging the child to have that test or rewarding them after. It can be the choice of a novelty Band-Aid. And we go through 2,500 packets of different novelty Band-Aids. A lot of kids lose that opportunity of choice when they're diagnosed with cancer. They don't choose a lot of the things that healthy kids choose. It can be the choice of a novelty nasogastric tube tape. The normal ones are beige and they get really grotty really quickly. So the kids, we work with this gorgeous company and we have hundreds of those all the time. A Twinings tea bag for a mum, or it could be a snack in the pantry. Kids get really, really hungry. They crave salt, so we do lots of salt crackers and things like that. We don't provide whole meals as such in the hospital, but we do provide meal hampers for families, and they're a weekend of happiness for a family. Well, I remember recently one of the mums saying, the timing's perfect because I have to have my own surgery, and so I was going to cook all weekend for the family.
Oh, gosh.
The lollipops, I actually didn't mention, we distribute 2,000 of those a month. So it gives you an idea of the scope. We also fund 9 or 11 virtual reality goggles. So these are these great big goggles. You're familiar with those. And one of the programs, I'm not familiar with all of them, but one of the programs, the child becomes a penguin. And as the penguin dives into the cold water, that's where the site's being prepared, and being made hygienic. And then the penguin is swimming around in the water with all the little fish passing by, and then all of a sudden a fish bites the child on the site.
Yeah.
And the child doesn't even realise they've been bitten.
Yeah,
They keep
yeah,
swimming.
yeah.
And these are all obviously timed to procedures. So we're providing those to major hospitals who probably should have the funding to do them themselves. But we love the fact that we can provide something so high tech within our budget, and we get a lot of good support from philanthropy to fund those.
Yeah.
And often it's been families who've got their own children who go, hey, we're the lucky ones, our kids are healthy, we'd love to fund the Smiley Scope. Storytime literacy devices. So a child can sit in, it's like a pod, and they sit in a pod, and on the screen is thousands of different stories, games, puzzles and things that's 9 different languages. But then there's also now an app that we take out the subscription for, and we have multiple users, and there's not more than I think 43 languages that children. So we're acknowledging, of course, that so many of our families. They might speak English, but it may not be their first language. So as we try to get to more and more families, we try to provide them with more and more different things that fit the way they do.
Yeah, yeah. What is your favourite part of this? Because you said you've been doing it for 20 years, so there's got to be something in there that every time it brings you a moment of happiness when you can be part of it.
There are lots of them, but I think the main one I have to say is getting up in the morning and going to the office and doing what I do. Yeah. And I get such a buzz out of it because, yes, it's something that we've created, but the fact that we can create so much happiness. Yeah. And one could say for such little effort, but from such small things. I get a real buzz out of a donation, and I don't mind if it's a $50 donation or a $50,000 donation, particularly when we get it again and again. Yeah. I love hearing the feedback. I can't answer to one thing. I love getting the feedback because we've really we've worked hard to develop our corporate volunteer program, and we try to expose our visitors to as many different aspects of the organisation as we can. So all of that for me is a buzz. And an aside to it is in 2006 I was diagnosed bipolar, and I had suffered from some really, really poor mental health. So to be able to create my own job, doing the things that I love and having to do some of the other things as well, because that comes with the territory, is really special, and I feel very privileged. And I'm not talking about from a financial perspective, but the fact that I have the mental wherewithal, the emotional strength, and the connections that I've attracted so many people, so that I became a we. And they say greatness isn't built by one person, and it's not. And we have such a great team. During COVID, Jess, who was our full-time employee, is now part-time employee. We now have 2 part-time employees and looking for a third. So we have relatively young people working with us, and I love working with kids, although they don't like being called kids. But I really get a buzz out of that, and I love sharing what I've learned with them and then gleaning, of course, from them. I had a lesson in TikTok today. I think I'm going to need quite a few more before I become savvy with that.
I don't manage the TikTok here, and neither does Shane. We are very firmly not the people who do TikTok in our office.
Yeah, so really to answer your question, the whole box and dice is pretty special. And then when you get a quote from a family that says, I feel like a deer in the headlights, and you really have helped me on my way as we try to navigate our way through our child's survival. That's when you realise.
Do you know how many people you've actually cared for over or been involved with over that 20 years?
I can only say thousands.
It's
something that we often get asked. I don't know how we'd but to give you an idea of, say, today, we have just under 600 families on our database. That database was started basically the day COVID started because we realised we could not support families even though the hospitals closed their doors, and we didn't deal with families in their homes before. So our database, even though it's a bit old, it's got just under 600 families on it. Now, they include families that were diagnosed 2 weeks ago, because I know that one of the registrations that came in today was 2 weeks ago. And then when we go into the hospitals, we cross-reference the list of patients in the hospital at the time with our database, and normally about half of them are on our database. So obviously the challenge is to get the other half. You're talking hundreds and hundreds at any one time, which has to equate to thousands over the years. Most of the kids survive. The common cancer amongst children is leukemia. You may have heard of the expression ALL, which is acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and there's about a 98% survival rate.
Yeah, okay.
That's not without its side effects, obviously, because of the treatments. But what we're enjoying watching now are newer treatments, less toxic treatments, more precision or personalised treatments. And it may sound like I know a hell of a lot about cancer treatment. I don't. I don't. But they're all very positive numbers. Kids with brain tumours, obviously, unfortunately aren't as good numbers as the leukemias. They're also more rare, and fortunately not as many.
Yeah. In terms of volunteering, because obviously what we want to do is make sure that as many people that are in our community know about Koala Kids and the ability to volunteer. How do you attract volunteers, and how does that work from a corporate space as well? Because you said that developing the corporate volunteering has been something that has motivated you in recent times. Where do people find you to volunteer, and what does that look like? Because we sent a team out to Koala Kids to do some volunteering. Does it have to be that? You've talked about, small donations and things like that. What tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I love going to schools and talking. And we discourage schools from having gold coin donation days for Koala Kids. So instead we say, hey, we need to collect X number of Band-Aids, donate Band-Aids. Now from that we've had some teachers apply to volunteer with us. We used to have a strong student program of volunteers and I was very passionate about it because I used to love doing that myself at that age. Unfortunately, it just is time consuming for us to make sure that there's good jobs for them all the time. So we've had to can that, which has been really disappointing. And then occasionally you'll get one ripper kid who sends in an amazing application, and I say, great, I'll take that student on for a week in June, and they will work with me for the week. So I find that sort of irresistible.
So like a work experience.
Like a work experience, we used to have a very busy program with it, but as I said, we couldn't do that and the corporate and keep our regular volunteers busy. Our best ambassadors, we're not like those charities. A lot of charities have footballers and actors. And we don't have any of those because our best ambassadors are our volunteers. So when Maddie comes in to volunteer in the hospital on a Friday, the first thing she does is she tells all her friends about, like your team did, what a great experience she had and how special it is, and what a privilege it is to be able to walk into the room of a family who's got a child who's threatened with a terminal illness. So they're our best. Our best ambassadors. Today, there's 6 applications for volunteering. Of those 6, not all will go through, will progress their application because for some it's not what they thought it might be, and then for others they just become the most wonderful, passionate, very driven and very committed volunteers, and they join the team and they'll volunteer once a week or once in a fortnight. And then very often a girlfriend of mine, like last night I got a phone call and Jo said, oh, Mandy, I was at such and such, and she really would love to come in and work with you guys, volunteer or work. And I will, hold on, we've got a part-time position going. So it just depends on the person and their skills and where we meet them, but it's all about introduction and connection. And I've got a very, very broad network that goes right back to my fashion industry days and philanthropic days since then. So, all different ways. And the really nice thing is, even though we obviously have to police check everybody and everybody comes with a working with children check, we don't police check those people that we know. And I think we've only done 4 police checks all year. Doesn't mean we're taking on dozens and dozens and dozens of volunteers because we're also we have to be strategic about it because we can have too many, and then what happens, of course, you've got so many that you haven't got jobs for everyone and for the corporates and for this. And what also happens is volunteers holiday and school and kids go on school holiday. So we can end up without a volunteer except the Monday team or we can end up totally overloaded. So it's a constant balancing act too. So, and if we do take on a volunteer and they commit to something, we like to commit to. So it becomes very much a partnership. And we've got some wonderful volunteers, and then once a year we have a ladies' lunch. A lunch. I've been told not to call it a ladies' lunch, even though only ladies come. And that's one of our major fundraisers.
Yeah, okay.
And one of a gorgeous guest from last year rang me maybe a month ago. She said, Mandy, I was so inspired by what you said. Can I come and volunteer with you? I said, well, let's meet and see what you can do and what we can't do. So that's what we do.
Yeah. And corporate volunteering, what does that look like? Because a lot of the people who listen to this podcast have their own businesses and are looking for opportunities to be able to connect with communities. What does the corporate volunteering look
thanks,
like?
Andrea. It's a half day.
Yep.
We say it's on normally on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, but lately I've been booking Thursdays. And I'm the only one in the office on Thursdays, which isn't really smart. But we try to work in with obviously the organisation. It incurs a cost of a tax deductible donation of $2,500. We do one a month for up to 10 people in the morning, and the morning includes the first part of the program is an overview of the organisation, and so I power them for half an hour, and of course everyone is left, oh my God, haven't got a question, but really itching to get into it. And then the next 2.5 hours, less 5 minutes, are spent doing different activities in the office, in the storeroom and in the warehouse. So again, different activities, and then we spend the last 5 minutes just wrapping up, filling in a quick survey, and we sort of average about a 98% net promoter score, which is great. But we say to people, please be constructive. It's an anonymous survey. Tell us how we can further improve this session. And we take bookings in advance, and then sometimes if there's a huge load of jobs, then we'll go back to companies and say, hey, we've got another one available that month, etc.
Yeah, excellent. We've found that because we really enjoy doing these sorts of things on site in places that like yours, the team actually just really feel a lot of love for it. A lot of it's really fulfilling for them to be able to do that, which is why we like to choose organisations that do it in this way. That it is a very hands-on thing. Like
very
people
much.
are actually,
Absolutely.
packing boxes or doing, actual
it's tangible.
work.
It's a
And I
tangible.
just say two of the jobs we try and get each team to do each month. One is what we call the PICS folders. And the PICS folders is everything you need to know about what your child is about to undergo with cancer treatment, but you wouldn't have known to ask. And you're normally spinning out while you're being given this folder. PICS is the Pediatric Integrative Cancer Service, and it's a document. It's a zipped folder with lots and lots of pages of information in it, and there's nothing happy about it except that we've changed the colours of it. We've put lovely, bright, colourful dividers into it. We've put all the pages in nice clear plastic pocket, and we've made it look like a happier document than in fact what it is. So we get the volunteer. We try and get them to do 40 of those a month. Which unfortunately gives you a bit of an idea too about how many families are being diagnosed at different times. And then the other job, which is the best one, which I didn't mention at the beginning, but it comes around, is our smash cakes. And every child, while they're undergoing their treatment, they get from Koala Kids a chocolate smash cake, which is a chocolate sphere. Okay. It's got lollies on the outside, filled with lollies on the inside. It comes with its own timber mallet. Look at me, if I stand on my hands, I'll be speechless. So we get the volunteers packing those, and they're packing individual smash cakes to go to kids in their homes. And that's so it gives you the two total different ends of what we do.
Sometimes, it is what you're doing is working with a really sad situation for families, but like you said, it's creating those moments of happiness. That kid is going to remember that they got to smash that cake, which is, that's a really cool thing.
And what tells us, what keeps giving us this relevance is when, God forbid, a family has lost their child and we don't know because the hospital don't tell us. So unless the family tells us, we don't know until, of course, we come round to sending them a birthday cake. And unfortunately, Freddie didn't make it. But we'd still like to provide you with the cakes, and we know the siblings. So we make sure we're informed when we're communicating to the best of our ability. I say, that would be amazing because Freddie loved that smash cake. So we are able, and we don't terminate any families from our database. We can notice that they're no longer subscribing to activities. Every month there's different activities they can register for, etc. So we do notice if they're not, and we notice if they're not doing the birthday cake. And it's when they're not doing the birthday cake that we will make them a passive, obviously, member rather than an active member.
Hard conversations to have, right? Like it
impossible.
one of those situations where you're doing something amazing for an amazing cause, but you've got to be really sensitive about those conversations, right? I want to talk a little bit about you, which probably, if you're anything like us, you'll probably skip over some stuff. But I hope that you'll indulge us and our audience in this. You've got an Order of Australia medal. We don't have a lot of people come into our podcast studio who have been given an Order of Australia. So we thank you for that because it's pretty special. I think it's pretty special. Tell us about how that came about, because it's not like everybody in Sundry just gets an Order of Australia. What happened?
Yeah, thanks,
that?
Andrea. Well, the person, a colleague of mine or friend, he was actually used to be a colleague and for many years a friend, nominated me and sought other nominations from people with whom I've worked, volunteered, worked over the years. And I was recognised for, it went back in because I was interested, of course, to read the application later and see why I got it. And it went back to school days when I used to when I volunteered at school for different things and work experience, etc. that I did then. Then over the years I've been involved in startup not-for-profit organisations. And Snowdome Foundation, which is an amazing organisation that supports Australians with blood cancers. Another one is called End UCD, which is unexplained cardiac death. It was actually my psychiatrist's son, a pilot, 50 years of age, died suddenly one Sunday night.
Okay.
And she rang me. She was overseas at the time. She rang me. She said, Mandy, the houses are filling up. The family's houses were filling up with flowers and all this money. It's going to be wasted. She said, can you organise so that we can have some sort of tax-deductible vehicle that people can donate to? So I remember the morning that I sat at my desk, we were ringing pilots associations and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So it was recognising the different impacts I've had personally, but I interpreted it more that, yes, it was looking at what I did, but the people that I have always taken with me. And, you know, when I got back to the office, it was during the January holidays, when I got back to the office, everybody was just so excited. And it was really the biggest tick for Koala Kids, and our families were so excited that I'd been recognised for it. And it was on behalf of, basically, for the work that I did for all these families and all these different organisations, etc. over the years. And really what I've really enjoyed about it, apart from obviously that thrill that it's given to other people, is its open doors for Koala Kids. I have been approached by numerous other organisations that would like me to be involved. I used to be involved in more organisations than the one now. And Koala Kids has obviously been my baby, not for probably more for the last 10, 12 years than before that. So it's been great for Koala Kids in all different manners of speaking.
So I'm going to go back a little further now, because you just said that the nomination was relating to the work that you did when you were at school and the volunteering. So it's clearly something that is in your
DNA.
Bones. You are a giver. And then you said that your son wanted to, be able to give as well. So obviously this is a family thing. It's not just something that mum's decided she's going to be into philanthropy. When you first had how did you first go about having conversations with your children about what it meant to give back to the community? Like when, sometimes people don't have those conversations at all. Like there are families out there who, are wealthy people who don't choose not to do this. What's that conversation look like for you?
The conversation, I won't say that one day I sat the kids down and said this. They had watched me during their school days be very involved at school, fundraising at school, creating events at school. So the word volunteer wasn't foreign to them. They knew that I would go and talk to people about volunteering. And as I said, they were being taught at school very much about, there were opportunities for those kids to go and volunteer elsewhere. So it was really just part of parenting. Part of our family DNA, and I'd watched my mother do that too. I became a lot more involved than Mum did. She didn't have some of the access to some of the things that I have over the years. So it was really an evolutionary thing. And then the kids saw me speaking at different things or saw people approaching me. And I suppose we always spoke about our day and what did we do. And so it was very much part of growing up. And I might add too, Nick to this day is incredibly and integrally still involved in Koala Kids. He manages, we have a $1 million investment portfolio, which is our future proofing for Koala Kids, so that when there isn't a volunteer executive director and we have to salary someone, there is the money there to do it. So if I got hit by a bus when I leave here, it's all fine.
We like to say here, if I win Tats Lotto, like when something good happens to me rather than when something bad.
Yeah, I know.
So when you decide to step out, you'll be giving it all back into the fund.
Still be doing it.
No, it's very much about because I'm seen as the face of Koala Kids. So we are breaking that down too, and we have got a succession plan.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, we do. And I've just become a grandmother for the first time.
Wow,
congratulations.
And Nick, our bar mitzvah boy, is now a father. So as well as managing our little investment portfolio and lots of other multis with a company called Crestone, LGT Crestone.
I know that.
I'm sure you know.
Yes.
So as well as doing that, Nick also co-chairs our gala committee, and the gala committee have a black tie dinner or ball each year, and they raised last year from 100 guests, they raised $110,000.
Wow.
So he's very much involved in that, in the investment, and again recruiting. His network obviously is a strong one too, which is fantastic, and they get their event completely underwritten by contacts of Nick, and then every dollar raised on the night which is fantastic. So it's really just a matter of this is just what we do, and I don't think the kids ever saw me as being any different to anyone else, even though other mothers may not do what I do. But it was part of my day.
We talk about philanthropic things with our clients all the time because it's an important thing for us to talk to with them about succession planning, about family planning, about their estate planning and all of that sort of stuff. We have found over the years, and we've had conversations with other philanthropic people, that these conversations are hard, like as families. It's when you can afford to give, people, it's not like people talk about it freely. It's often difficult conversations where people feel like you're asking them to be part of something, and it's all very like, oh, I'm sorry, I really don't like to ask, but could you be involved in this? How have you gone about having those conversations with people? Obviously, you are in a community already of really generous people, generous with their time, generous with their skill, etc. If people were listening today and thinking to themselves, I'd really like to start having conversations with my family or my work colleagues or whatever, how would you recommend they have those conversations?
Whoa, Andrea, that's
I'm going to go
that's
right down into it.
Well, it's interesting because one of Jewish people's values is philanthropy. So the conversation, say, that we won't be having with our children, although no, we will be having it, because it's about, at the moment, it's about Stephen and I and what we like to do. But of course, we involve the children. And we only were talking about it last night at dinner. A lot of Jewish families now are having to have that conversation with their and involving the children. Now, of course, it's interesting what we think, how we're going to change the world or change our backyard. There are a lot of young Australians now who want to seriously change the world, and they're into different things than we might be into, and that might be the environment, or it might be just other issues. So there's a lot of respect that's got to come into it, and I think so far as what I know is a lot of people, they do seek specialist advice. And whether it's their financial advisors, et cetera, because I think it's not just a matter of saying, well, I want to save the world so far as, being a greenie, blah, 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 and this is how I'll go about it. I encourage, and I believe people do, is to be informed. And you've got to learn about the organisations. And I love it when people approach us and they say, look, is it possible we can come in and have a chat? We'd like to consider putting Koala Kids into our mix of beneficiaries, but we just need to know more about it. And it's funny because when we get a donation from either a family because a child's had a party and they've asked their friends to donate. And if they haven't contacted us before, the first thing I do is get on the phone and say, hey, can you tell me why you made this donation?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because I go, oh, great. Well, I'd really like to get you in and show you what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, I could never imagine making a donation somewhere without really knowing what's going on in that organisation.
Yeah.
We do for our benefactors reports, regular reports, be it a 3-month report or a 6-month report. Even when they say, oh, you don't have to do that for us, we do it for different levels, and we say these are the sorts of things we've bought with your money.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not, you gave us 1,000, we spent 1,000 on that. But these are, and they're really enjoying that. For a small organisation like ours to be able to provide it is really fabulous. And we've got a volunteer who spends a lot of her time helping me, and she writes them, and then we tweak them together. So it's important. I think the education. I hope I've answered the question.
No,
it's about learning about things. So if you're going to have a conversation with the family members, see what they're interested in too, and then see maybe, well, okay, we can follow that path. And let's learn some more before we do something.
That's I think that's what we've typically started saying to people is that, when you sit down as a family, talk to the kids about what it is that they want to be, what's motivating them, so that they have an understanding. Because obviously what Koala Kids came out of something that was a family motivation, wasn't it? It was an ability 100%. For you to connect in a certain way. What is next for Koala Kids? There's always something that is like
end of June.
I know. Obviously, people can do a tax-deductible donation.
Correct,
so we will share all of the details on that. So
fantastic. Thank you so much. And they can look forward to a phone call from them. And you know what? Often people have said, it's incredible. We've been donating to some companies for years, and we've never as much as had a phone call or a letter or a thank you. Well, you can never say thank you often enough. And that's my belief. I don't think it's just good manners, but I was lucky to be born with good manners and encouraged to maintain good manners. The next thing for us is really to maintain the momentum we've got. I alluded to the succession plan. Because I'm now a grandmother, I now no longer work Fridays. So I'm Monday to Thursday, and then next year I'm going to put back another day. So our aim now is to maintain a beautiful sustainability without losing any of the impetus and keeping me for the best parts that I'm really good at. And we hope that by 2027 we'll be in a situation where we can go out and we'll have to salary a general manager and that I will maintain 2 days a week. Please goodness into perpetuity.
Amazing.
Which is what I hope to do without giving away my age. My worst foe is aging. Although of course I'd like to stay as I am today for many years. It's one of my babies. So I don't ever intend. I always want to hopefully have the capacity, and by that I talk obviously mental health, physical health, and that my family don't need me more than the time that I'm able to provide.
I think we have exactly the same philosophy here too as that, Mandy, that this Aintree Group is our baby, and we don't have any intention of completely stepping away from it ever either. So we perfectly understand how that is, and the fulfilment from what you do, even if it is 1 or 2 days a week, is absolutely worthwhile keeping involved in. And no doubt for your family, future generations are going to come through Koala Kids anyway.
That's right.
And, it will be something that is a family legacy for you and your family to move forward with, which I think is really important. And
or to be awfully sad if it all fell over when I, when something
exactly.
happened.
Well, that's it, isn't it? When you're
and
building
I haven't
something,
done my job properly.
Exactly. I said that we would make sure that people know how to make a donation. They'll also we'll also give everybody a link to the website so that they can link to the website, and things like the events that you run and stuff like that. How do people become involved in that? Is that just as simple as sending Mandy an email and saying I'd like to be involved, or is there some sort of process that you like to go through with that sort of stuff?
The lunch and the dinner, they're small events, and they're pretty well subscribed to already. Although we always look for volunteers to work at the event. Sorry, I just lost the thought then.
That's okay. Just how people can get involved and if people want to be part of what you're doing here.
Yeah, the best way is just to contact us. We do every year, and I think I mentioned it to the team when they come in, every year we do a Christmas toy drive.
Okay.
Now, the main part about doing it when we do it is because it's at Christmas. But not all the gifts are used for Christmas toy giving.
Sure.
And we actually we had 41, I think, different organisations, schools, church groups, etc., donating brand new toys to us last year.
Wow.
And they then become the backbone of a lot of our programs, our Lucky Dip program, our Hospital Lingo program, our sensory toy program, etc. So that's a big one come October. We start promoting that. And a lot of companies, rather than giving gifts to each other, they like to have toy drives. So that's a really big one, and that's getting bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah. I think, again, it's one of those things where if someone can give something tangible, it makes it, easier. It's rather than a donation to somewhere. If it's that.
No, it's not always about a cash donation.
Definitely. The team in here absolutely loves bringing in things. Like when we have the opportunity to be able to, get a basket of goodies or whatever it happens to be, and the team loves that.
And they see it there, and it's all colourful, and you can see the happiness that it's going to provide. And we're really lucky. We don't pay $1 in outgoings or rent. We're just around in Auburn Road, Hawthorn, and we're in the building owned by a Corjo, large
I know exactly the building.
Right, so they've got a huge warehouse. So people, we create a drive-through drop-off for the Christmas gifts, and we have pallet after pallet. I think we had 15 pallets.
Wow!
By Christmas last year, we got a few more in January as well.
Yeah, fantastic.
And then they're all sorted and packed up, etc. So we have a whole form whereby we can send out the form and suggested gifts because they've got to be small. No one has storage space for things, and they can't be used. They have to be brand new. They can't be wrapped in Christmas paper because we need to see what's in them. So there's a whole lot of criteria. And we hope that people read them.
Yeah, well, we'll make sure that we
we'll send
pop
you the
details for that as well, because again, that's the sort of thing that lots of people can be involved in. You don't have to, do anything special to do that. Exactly. It's like a trip to Kmart and a few things under the tree. So fantastic.
And it's really nice. A lot of people involve their kids in that too. Come on, let's go out and do some things for other children. I once spoke to a group of 3-year-old kinder students. Now someone thought, well, what on earth could without any school teaching background? And I said to them, imagine if you don't feel well and you can't go to school for a long time. What sort of things would you like to play with at home? It's as simple as that. You don't have to mention the word cancer. You don't have to say about hospital. You don't have to say about life-threatening. But that's what appealed to the kids, and it was amazing, the feedback we got.
Terrific. I want to thank you for coming in today. It's great to know that you're local because a lot of our community obviously are based around here, and they will have driven past where you are, I'm sure, because we know exactly where it is. We drive past all the time. Thank you so much for coming in, and thank you for allowing our team to become part of it as well. It's really special for us to have a local organisation like Koala Kids that we can expend our time in as well. So as I said, everything will be shared with the listeners after this. So hopefully you get a bit of a few emails and a few phone calls from our
that's great. It was interesting.
Community.
I was only speaking to the Burundara Resource Centre this morning, and they're doing a day or an evening session whereby they're talking about not-for-profits in the their area and the partnerships, different partnerships.
Yeah, they do a really good job. Burundara a really good job.
They do.
So
they do.
It's great to, I think they do the volunteer function expo and things like that, which is also terrific. It gives people the idea. I think we're fortunate to live in an area where people really do love to give. Like it's very, very giving, and I think we're very lucky.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
And thank you. I don't know how you chose Koala Kids with the. I think it was our SEO working really well. But
probably
really
we were looking for a local organisation.
We love sharing our stories. You can tell, and I'm particularly proud of what we do and what everyone does that makes up Koala Kids.
It's amazing.
It's fantastic. Well done.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
Mandy.
Andrea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.